There seems to be a lot of contention amongst Chamorros in the performing arts community, from outside and from within. I'm specifically referring to the schools taught by and popularized by Frank Rabon. The most common argument I hear against these dances is that they do not constitute authentic Chamorro dance. Detractors reason that because these dances are too heavily borrowed from Polynesian dances, then therefore they are inauthentic. Not only is this reductionist thinking, it's problematic and harmful. Let me explain. The majority of these arguments are informed by a fundamental misunderstanding of what modern Chamorro dance is. These arguments ignore the purpose that Chamorro dance fulfills for modern Chamorros today. People misunderstand modern Chamorro dance, as well as Rabon's motives, by assuming that he is attempting to produce authentic forms of Chamorro dances that were performed by Chamorro ancestors. Rabon has never actually claimed that he is teaching authentic forms of Chamorro dance. More specifically, he has never claimed that these dances are the dances of Chamorro ancestors. In fact, he has stated that the dances his schools perform are merely recreations of Chamorro dance. He further explains that the reason he has to recreate Chamorro dance movements is because the movements were not fully documented during the Spanish colonial period, and the dances of Chamorro ancestors were lost as a result of colonization. The important takeaway is to remember that Chamorros did at one point have traditional pre-colonial dances, but they were lost due to colonization. And now Rabon is attempting to reintroduce Chamorro dance into the cultural sphere. Rabon's purpose for reintroducing Chamorro dance was to connect Chamorro youth to their ancestral heritage. His efforts established a continuity of Chamorro culture and created a channel through which modern Chamorros could connect with their pre-colonial ancestors, a bridge between past and present. He wanted to show his people that the understanding of Chamorro dance could be expanded beyond the cha-cha, the bailin español, and the electric slide. He made it so Chamorro youth could use dance as a vehicle to explore their cultural past beyond the reaches that Spanish-influenced dance could ever achieve. Now we need to address the carabao in the room. What about the dances that were borrowed from Polynesia? I would argue that borrow might not even be the correct way to describe the history of Chamorro dance on Guam. The reason I say this is because when you examine the history of Chamorro dance within a Micronesian/Pacific Islander context, the argument that Chamorros stole or borrowed from Polynesians simply doesn't hold up. Due to the loss of Chamorro dance during Guam's colonial periods, Rabon and other pioneers of Chamorro dance found themselves in a precarious position without clear-cut examples of Chamorro dances to draw inspiration from. Rabon and other practitioners looked outward to the Pacific. In his attempts to develop Chamorro dances, Rabon incorporated universal Pacific dance movements found all over the Pacific to recreate Chamorro dances. To the untrained eye, these dances appear to be the same as those found in Polynesia. However, dancers are able to identify, or rather feel, the differences. Furthermore, these dances have been performed in front of masters of dance from all over the Pacific in dance festivals since the 1980s. One would think that if what they were doing was so egregious, then the other dancers would get together to scold, ban, sanction, or outlaw Chamorros from participating in Pacific cultural dance festivals. But that's not the reality. Why? Because people within the community understand that the Chamorros lost their dances due to over 400 years of colonization. They understand that these are recreations. They understand that the purpose is to connect Chamorros with their indigenous heritage. And again, I emphasize, Rabon himself acknowledges that these dances are recreations. What's important to remember is that these dances that emerge from Rabon's schools do not simply appear out of thin air. Additionally, his newer dances are built from the ground up upon decades of archival research and examination of Guam's history and the Chamorro people's past. Yet, sadly, some of our own people don't understand this. Instead of encouraging Chamorro dancers to continue to build upon Rabon's work, they bring each other down. To them, Bailan Españols, which has about 300 years of history here, is the only legitimate form of Chamorro dance, despite Chamorros having a 4,000-year-long history in the Marianas. And yes, Frank Rabon acknowledges Bailan Españols as part of the historical canon of Chamorro dance, claiming that Chamorros don't have their own authentic dances just because they don't fit into some prescriptive criteria is reductive and ultimately unproductive in perpetuating Chamorro culture and tradition. The Chamorro community is so quick to judge based off of a single 15-minute dance performance without understanding the complex history and examining the holistic context of Chamorro dance, that this is more than just about dancing. Dance is the vehicle used to perpetuate the culture, the values, and the language through the telling and retelling of stories, through the movement of the body, and through song. And the stories we tell is not just limited to any one time period. No, history is made every day. Therefore, the dances also incorporate the experiences of the everyday. As someone who is not part of any performing arts group, I greatly admire what they are doing, because they are not willing to sit back and watch as our great traditions be relegated to history books. They are taking charge of their Chamorro identity. They are performing all around the world, and in turn, the world accepts them as Chamorros. So while you are too busy questioning the authenticity of the dances, they are busy doing what really matters, and that is perpetuating our culture, our values, our stories, and our language for the future generations of Chamorros. So, Zeus Masi for watching. This is PulanSpeaks. Esta. Ginen